Welcome to this week's episode of LdnOnt TV here on Rogers TV. I'm your host, Bronagh Morgan, and this is the former politics show. It still is the politics show here on Rogers TV, but a lot of political focus, and really everything is political. I have had the privilege to host a couple of times the election night panels here on Rogers TV, and we've had a lot of those lately, haven't we? So one of the most popular panelists from our, I think, most recent election, God, it's hard to remember what it was. I think it was municipal.
Absolutely.
Jeff Preston. So Jeff Preston, Associate Professor of Disability Studies at King's University College at Western. And did I put them in the right order?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, wonderful. It's a lot of names. And obviously does a lot of political advocacy, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that today, and a lot of political hot takes.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's rare that I'm allowed to be on television. So I much appreciate it.
Is it the swears?
It's a lot of things. Dark past. Dark past.
Well, you used to have a show here on Rogers TV as well.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, LdnOnt. A fake political show. This is like the real political show, and mine was the fake news version.
All right, well, let's get political if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah, let's dive in.
All right, so since, I guess, the most recent election, which was the municipal, new council, any hot takes? What's your feeling so far?
It's been interesting. I think it's been interesting. There's an interesting balance of of fresh faces and I don't want to say old faces, but there's a bit of a balance there.
Experienced faces.
That's perfect. That's a much better way of putting it. Apology to all my friends that are old faces on council.
Old faces are good faces.
Yeah. So I think there's this interesting balance that's happening where you have people that are kind of used to the day in and day out flow of council, and then you've got a bunch of new people that are trying to get up to speed and sort of going as fast as they can. And so I think this transition is what a lot of transitions look like. It's a little bit slow. There's lots of eager beavers, lots of people that are interested in getting to work and getting in there. And we're seeing that as we go through the strat plan process, right? Where you have all of the councillors are out there, they're talking to constituents, and they're trying to bring that information back. And as a result, we've had some really interesting little wrangling happening at City Hall as people try to determine what the next 4 years are going to look like. And so it's been interesting, if albeit a little bit slow, but it's picking up now that it's spring.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I like what you said too is how a lot of the councillors are getting out into the community and having conversations with people, because whether or not you're a politician or really politically active, your voice matters, and everything that happens on every level of the government impacts pretty much everything that happens in your daily life every single day. I know that you particularly are an advocate for a lot of different issues in the community, and one of them that I'm pretty hot about as well is transit.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about what you have been working on with respect to the whole situation with transit here in London.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, transit is a huge conversation, and I think transit has become a bit of a dirty word in London in the last sort of 4 or 5 years. It feels like it's actually like more politically tense to talk about transit than like anything else maybe in the city. I mean, with like whole like lawn sign campaigns and that sort of thing. But what I'm really interested in is a piece of the transit conversation that often falls by the wayside and isn't given enough attention. And that's literally the lack of accessible transit for people with disabilities in our city. So right now we have a conventional transit system, which admittedly has lots of problems that were exacerbated by COVID. And then we have this secondary system or parallel system, which is sometimes referred to as paratransit. Paratransit being a door-to-door service for people with disabilities that are not able to ride on the conventional system, essentially. So the bus will come to your house, pick you up, take you where you want to go, in theory. The problem is that I've lived in London now for 20 years, and it has never worked in the way that it is intended to work, the way that it is theoretically designed to work. And what most people experience is an extremely frustrating, extremely annoying, infuriating system where people are left to constantly dial in over and over and over again every morning, only to be told once they do get through that there are no rides left to book.
Oh, Lord.
It is a brutal system, and it's a system that I've been advocating for like over a decade. And so it turns out that there are lots of us out there in London who also feel that enough is enough. And it's time that we actually fix this system. And so we started talking to other people, riders on paratransit, people that have left paratransit because it's so dysfunctional.
And how did you get those voices? Like, how did you?
It's a really interesting story. So a lot of this really kicked off by an article in CBC. CBC London did an article about the problems of paratransit. And it's funny, they put out this one article about someone who's having trouble with the service, and what happens? They're flooded, inundated with people saying, hey, I have those same problems. In fact, I have an even more absurd story that I can share about the service. And so what happened is that we all started to find each other on the internet. We all started to find each other, whether it was, I did an interview with CBC London, people saw the name, went on Twitter, found me on Twitter, jumped into the DMs, and we're like, hey, I want to talk about this too. I want to do
Twitter
something about this. I know, rarely does it happen, but every once in a while a tweet can actually change the world. And so we started to organize. We started to organize on social media, we started to organize via email, and started to make a plan, which was, how do we get this on the agenda at City Hall? And how do we start holding accountable the London Transit Commission, who regularly will say, things are going great, while people are left waiting for rides that never arrive.
That must feel kind of gaslighty.
It's extremely frustrating. It's extremely frustrating that we're being told everything's going great by people who themselves don't even necessarily ride the service. The head of the LTC, when asked by CBC if they've ever tried to book a ride, said no and felt that it wasn't worth their time to do so. I think that kind of tells you everything you need to know about the current state of the system, in which you have people who are in charge of running a system that they themselves are not necessarily dependent on, that aren't reliant on. And so it's really easy to say, oh, we're doing our best with paratransit, as you jump into your own vehicle and drive home after work, while, maybe your colleagues who have a disability are sitting waiting in the lobby for who knows how long before the ride finally arrives.
So important for people to, know about this issue if you're not somebody who's dialing into the system and getting frustrated all the time. But for people who need this service just to do basic things to interact with the community, to live their lives.
Yeah.
So important. So take me to next step of your advocacy. So you've got the group together.
Yeah, so we got the group together, and then we started reaching out to our city council representatives. And what was really interesting to me as I started talking to councillors was we started hearing the same thing over and over again, which is our councillors saying, this is all I hear about. I'm getting calls constantly about this issue. We want to do something about it. We want to make this work. But there's a problem, which is that the City Hall and the London Transit Commission are essentially separate entities. And so the city can advise the LTC to do things, but ultimately the commission decides on what happens next. And so we've been working on trying to push forward motions at City Hall to get paratransit as a plank of the strategic plan, so that there is an investment in the service. We need money to make this thing better. That's a big part of it. While also trying to push forward both questions and also recommendations to the London Transit Commission to start prioritizing this service once and for all, whether that be updating the archaic booking system that they use, about increasing rider capacity, and trying to ensure that the drivers are adequately trained so that all riders are feeling comfortable, safe, and accepted when they're on the bus.
Seems like very reasonable goals and really, practical, well-articulated. What's your sense of progress?
So I think there's two answers to that question. I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth, I think, right
All right,
now.
we have about 45 seconds to break.
Perfect. So on the one hand, people seem interested. There seems to be an encouragement. I think we might start moving forward. At the same time, we've heard this before. So we will hold our breath, and hopefully a change happens before we pass out.
Oh my gosh. Well, I hope, let's all just take a deep breath, hope for the best, and continue working for the best, and stay tuned because we're going to have more with Professor Jeff Preston after this.
This program is brought to you by the following sponsors.
Carbon monoxide is a deadly gas you can't see, smell, or taste.
Homes with fuel-burning appliances and/or attached garages must have working CO alarms installed outside all sleeping areas.
Don't let the silent killer get you. Install working CO alarms today.
Do you have questions about menopause and the menopause journey? We've got you covered. Join us for the Modern Woman's Menopause Show, and hopefully we can give you some answers. And of course, my friends, don't forget to sparkle.
I started with Rogers TV back in the summer of 2021. So I went to journalism school, so I had more experience on the other side of the camera, and so I thought getting some behind the camera experience would be better for career advancement. Some of the things that I've learned as a volunteer is how to set up the cameras, how to tear them down, how to set up commentators, headsets, things like that. I'd say just go for it. There's no really commitment for hours. You get the opportunity to meet a lot of great people, and you get to cover some great events. What it means to be a volunteer with Rogers is you get to connect to the community in ways that people don't necessarily see, like with hockey games or racing or baseball, things like that. I'd say yeah, just go for it. It's a lot of fun. You meet a lot of great people, and it's just a great time.
This is Rogers TV.
Welcome back to LdnOnt TV here on Rogers TV. I'm your host, Bronagh Morgan. I've been speaking with hopefully you think of me as a friend now that we've been on TV together a couple of times, Associate Professor of Disability Studies at King's University College, Jeff Preston. So, Jeff, we were speaking about how, kind of the power of the internet for good sometimes. Yeah. The ability to kind of bring people together. Let's stay on that positive note, talking about how you were able to, people you'd never met before, and you never would have been connected were it not for
for the internet.
For the internet.
Yeah. So something that's really interesting to me as a researcher, I'm a media studies scholar. I'm very interested in disability and popular culture, and the internet is a part of popular culture. And the internet has played a huge role in my life. I had the internet very young. I was the first on my block to get dial-up internet back when I was a little child. I wanted to be online. I loved computers as a kid. And I jumped online. And when I got online for the first time, suddenly I found this community. Because growing up in a small town, there were really no other disabled people around me. I was kind of it, and definitely it for muscular dystrophy. There just wasn't anyone in the area.
Gotcha.
But when I logged on, suddenly I was meeting all these other people that were like me, that were having similar experiences to me. And we were able to start to talk at that time on message boards, and then sort of instant messaging comes out, and then we evolve into this world that we call social media. And so the internet has provided an amazing opportunity for people with disabilities to organize, to build community, and to start to have conversations that often don't happen simply because we're isolated, whether it be geographically, regionally, or in other ways. And so as I've started to look into this and I started to think more about it, and I started to research the tools, digital media as a tool for justice, for a tool for organizing and community, it led to a real interest and fascination in these little things called internet memes, and being really interested in how internet memes are used to augment our communication online.
So memes, for the completely uninitiated, are?
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. So this is when I take up an hour and a half talking about the nuances of it. But largely put, internet memes are most often associated with those little images that people share, where it's usually an image with some text at the top and the bottom, in which the text at the top and the bottom changes based on certain contexts. So a really common example, one that I always like, is there's a kid make a little fist pump known as Success Kid, where you're able to use it to share sort of humble brags about little successes in your day-to-day life. So, it's, stop the microwave before it went off, success, right? That's a real common example. But memes are actually so much more than that. They're about highly referential internet culture and mainstream media being brought into digital culture to allow us to tell deeper, better, more interesting stories in really short, quick amounts of time. And so my research on this has led to what is now a course, a third-year course at King's in Disability Studies called DS3316, Memes and Dreams. And this is a course that's designed to help students to explore what it means to have disabilities online and how disability can be both augmented by, can be accelerated online, but also that there are some dangers and some real limitations that the internet poses in which real-world ableism starts to become transposed into digital spaces. So we try to walk the line between some things that are really exciting about digital technologies for disabled people, while also being conscious of the way that the insidious nature of ableism continues to pop up its ugly head, even in online spaces.
Fascinating. So how long have you been teaching this class?
So this class has now been running for 4 years. So I've had 4 different cohorts of students that have come through the class, all senior students in disability studies, where they've been able to get their hands dirty, get it into doing discourse analysis on memetic clusters, so literally grabbing internet memes and talking about how people use them, unpacking how they're used, and how disability is both reified, is naturalized, and also defined through these memes, while also then looking at exciting things like adaptive technologies that are allowing disabled people to do things that honestly never seemed possible previously, allowing people to have independence through the use of technology, which is a really, really exciting thing.
Fantastic. Okay, so you've had 4 different, I guess, cohorts of students. What kind of feedback have you been getting from the students?
I think they like it. I think, generally speaking, a lot of students, I think, sign up for the course. They see the name, Memes and Dreams, and they're like, oh, this will be a fun bird class. This will be funny. My friends will never believe me that there's a class on internet memes. Did it in my undergrad. And then once they get into the class and they start to look at it, they see the reading list and realize, right, I'm not supposed to take classes with Dr. Preston. He assigns really hard readings. Bad choice. But they start to get into the content. And they start to look at the world a little bit differently than they did previously. They start to realize that what may seem as something really simple or mundane that they see every day in their timelines actually plug us into a much deeper cultural story, a story that is happening often without us even really recognizing. And so taking time to pause and unpack that and understand some of the dark natures behind it and some of the real worrisome outcomes that can come from it, that's actually a really important thing for us all to do. But I think the students, what I've heard is that they come into the class assuming it's going to be sort of all laughs and giggles, and they discover that it is both laughs and giggles, but also, 2 students have told me fundamentally it changed their life. It changed the way that they think about the internet, which is kind of important, given that the internet is sort of at the root of many of our lives nowadays, especially after COVID.
Absolutely. And so that's, I guess, one of the main reasons why people, are lucky enough to end up in higher learning, like to actually, expand your mind in this way. Yeah. How does it fit into the general context of a disability studies degree, for example?
Absolutely. So our program at King's in Disability Studies is really situated at the intersection of a bunch of fields of study. So myself, I'm a media studies guy, so people coming into my classroom are going to be learning about the representation of disability, how we represent and tell stories about disability, and why we might not be doing a very good job of it, unfortunately, in the media and elsewhere. But we also have students who are interested in going into things like teaching. So we have classes about accessible education, how to do better as a teacher for people with disabilities. We have classes on policy change for people that want to go into law. We have classes on applied health, about thinking differently about how we do things like occupational therapy or physical therapy. So ultimately our program is designed to allow students to come in and design their own focus, so that whatever part of the disabled story they're interested in digging into, unpacking, and gaining valuable expertise, we're going to try and facilitate that journey.
Fantastic. And so this is a graduate studies degree, meaning that you would
undergrad. It's actually an undergraduate program. We're one of the only 4 full-year undergraduates in disability studies in Canada, and I would imagine we are by far the biggest. We have a ton of students coming in, and we're growing every day. We're really thrilled about that. It's something unique to London, and I'm just proud to be able to say I was a part of it.
Well, I'm proud to be able to say that this is the second time I've actually been on a broadcast with you. It's actually, maybe I could just for a second talk about my school. So it's actually a volunteering day for people who are alumni of Trent University. And I know there's going to be a couple of students coming on that are also Western, so I had to...
Oh, absolutely, of course.
I had to Trent represent
I think
today.
we're okay with Trent. It's mostly Queens that we have a real problem with.
That's my law school.
I see, that's the problem there. I'm okay with the Trent part, but I will not abide by the Queens part of your identity. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're friends anymore.
Oh, darn. Well,
shouldn't have told me that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Well, I guess we'll just have to deal with each other in a professional context from now on. So we'll talk politics, we'll talk about university, and I guess this will just be a handshake.
As far as I know, you were only at Trent.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And now I know after the break we're going to be talking to a couple of your memes and dreams students.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm so thrilled that they're able to be here, and they're going to tell you all the things that I'm terrible at, I'm sure.
Looking forward to it. All right, so thank you so much, Jeff. Please stay with us because we're going to be visiting with Maddie and Marcy from the Memes and Dreams course after our break.
This program is brought to you by the following sponsors.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Mario Elia, and I'm the host of a new show here on Rogers TV that we're calling Keeping London Healthy with Dr. Mario. So tune in Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. and we'll see you then.
Monday.
Hello, my name is Carolina from Libro Credit Union, and I'm this week's guest on Pollinating Purpose.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Welcome back to LdnOnt TV here on Rogers TV. We were chatting before the break with Associate Professor Jeff Preston, and now we get the inside information from two of his students from the Disability Studies program, Memes and Dreams class. Marcy and Maddie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
So tell us everything. So you're both, I think, double majors, you said?
Yes, we are. We're both double majoring third-year students in the Disability Studies program, but also Childhood and Youth Studies. So we've been together since the start.
Yes. Okay, so what is it that attracted you to this particular program?
So I'm looking at going into teaching, actually, and I've always wanted to work in like special education classrooms, so I thought that the combination of the childhood youth studies and disability studies was really interesting, and it's offered some really interesting perspectives. So yeah, I don't know about Marcy here.
Yeah,
but
I personally want to do my master's, and I want to pursue a career as a child life specialist. So again, two programs that are very much in tune with the other's values, and I think kind of going into grad school with these two programs would just look good on a resume, but also it really helps kind of build a person and kind of be a better, more inclusive kind of person to society.
What sets you up for success entirely. Yes. And like I think Dr. Preston was saying, they're so applicable and it's so interdisciplinary, so they really have a lot of overlap with lots of different areas, and I think it's really, really beneficial to take any disability studies course, whether or not you want to major in it. I think it's really helpful. It really does offer a lot of insight into something that's around us every day, which is great.
Yeah, and it just opens your eyes to kind of like how the world is so inaccessible and the ways that we as individuals can make things more accessible for not only people with disabilities, but for everyone.
Absolutely. So obviously it's going well because you both made it to the third year.
We do love the program.
Yeah. Memes and Dreams. So we talked a little bit about that before the break. You're both in that class.
We are.
Give me a little more detail, because sometimes I talk to Dr. Preston, it goes a little bit over my head.
It goes over our head too, believe it or not. When he was saying too, he's like, yeah, this reading list is a little over everyone's head. It is daunting. It's daunting to begin with, but I think, you know what, we're having a great time in the course, and it's very much giving you a new perspective on media, which is something that is surrounding us every day. So it's not, it starts with memes, but then you realize it pulls in social media in general. It pulls in TikTok, it pulls in movies, it pulls in popular culture in general. So it really is great. It's very, very useful, and you really take a step back and think critically about the things you're looking at, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. The first lecture that he gave, I was like, whoa, okay, this is gonna be a heavy course. But as he said, when you kind of start to dive into it, you really start to understand kind of the importance of kind of media in the lives of people with disabilities. It's such a use for kind of narratives, and I mean, we've gone on to kind of discover all of the different kind of mediums of kind of this world that are kind of inaccessible. We did a presentation on special effects. It's a foundation in the UK that basically creates kind of adaptive game controllers for people with disabilities, so they can benefit from leisure just like anyone else. So I don't know, the course is just, it's hard to kind of describe it in three words.
It really is.
It's so hard, but no, we're having a great time.
Fantastic. Other favorite courses that you have been, or anything that you've, really been surprised to learn maybe?
In the Disability Studies program, I've really enjoyed the bioethics side of it. So I took a bioethics course, and it's looking at ethical debates around disability and how the world reacts to that, and kind of what we can bring to it as disability studies scholars. And I think that's been super interesting. It was a highly debatable class, and every class was very much like, take a side and say what you think, and it was really beneficial, I think.
I think my two favorite courses was a course called Institutionalization Over Time, looking at the history of institutions of people with disabilities, and also a course called Navigating Health Systems, kind of looking at how all of these different individuals kind of have to navigate this health system that is so, it makes people so angry, but kind of looking at the inside scoop in that. So, I mean, there's so many courses. The thing that I love most about disability studies, you're constantly learning something new. You're just kind of applying different things that you've learned to different classes, and it's just, as you said, it's so relatable. It's just, you're always constantly learning, which I'm loving.
Absolute gem to have this course, this program available at our own university here in London, Ontario. So thank you so much for telling our viewers a little bit more about it. Thank you for being here. Good luck in the rest of your studies. Good luck with the professor. And thank you, Jeff, for being here as well. Thank you for tuning in this week to LDNOnt TV. I'm your host, Bronagh. I hope you'll tune in again next week.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Monday nights, a winner with Optimus TV Bingo on Rogers TV. With a weekly prize board of $3,000, the money raised funds projects to help the youth in our community. You can pick up your cards at over 90 locations across London, and for only $2